there are certain people who are, let's say, lay people, and I would consider myself one, don't know much about him. So tell us who he is, where he's from, good and the bad.
He's from Philly. He was with the Eagles last year. He had 11 sacks. He's 30 years old. What's interesting about this, they gave him more than $20 million a year. It's essentially the contract they wouldn't give DeForest Buckner. They had DeForest Buckner. They didn't want to pay him for whatever reason. They never really made that clear. They traded him for Javon Kinlaw, and they tried to make that work for 3 years. And it was finally them saying, okay, we were wrong. We're going to stop with that, and we're going to just go get the best defensive lineman we can get and give him the DeForest Buckner deal. So that's, growth. That's a good thing that they at least admitted that was a key part of their formula, having this dominant defensive line, and they're trying to recreate what they had 4 years ago. Like I said, he had 11 sacks last year. He's a really good player. He comes from the Eagles. The Niners just weakened them. He's really good. So okay. That's a good thing.
He plays on the inside. He's not an edge rusher.
Right.
Is it more important to get an inside guy than an edge rusher?
I think it's just important to get pass rushers wherever you can get them from.
Okay.
How
does he do against the run?
He's a very good run defender. He's an all-around really good player. Yes.
Yes.
But they're giving him they're giving him the DeForest Buckner contract, which is amazing that they gave it to Javon Hargrave and not Buckner, because Hargrave, as good as he is, he's not as good as DeForest Buckner. He's older than DeForest Buckner. He's 6'1". Not that there's anything wrong with that. He's much more compact than DeForest Buckner. And really, he had this great year last year, 11 sacks, but he's never really been a big sack guy up until last year. And I feel like the Niners are paying for that 11 sack season, kind of like they did with Eric Armstead a few years ago when he had a 10 sack season. He's not going to produce like that for the 49ers, I don't think. He's still going to be a good player. Like Armstead. He's more like Armstead than Buckner. Good player, good against the run, will create pressure. But is he going to get 10 sacks for the Niners next year? I would expect 5. Because on Philly, you know how Philly was. They had a bunch of good pass rushers. He was one of the guys over there. Here, it's him and Bosa, and everyone knows it. And he's going to get double-teamed, and it's going to be a lot harder for him.
I hope he's better than Armstead for what they're paying him.
He's Armstead's age. If you look at his numbers throughout the years, he had sacks like season where he had 2 sacks, 4 sacks, 6 sacks. He's never really done anything like last year until last year. He's going to have a good impact, but is he going to be worth $20 million something dollars? I don't know. Like in the Super Bowl, he did nothing against the Chiefs. Nothing. Good against the Niners, though.
But it's an upgrade to what
it absolutely is an upgrade. Yes.
So it's a very good thing.
Mm-hmm. He definitely makes them better.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
They're emphasizing so far. They made a big signing on the quarterback. We'll come back to that in a minute. But they're emphasizing the defense. I was more worried about the offensive line than the defense.
Yeah, me too. They're emphasizing the defensive line. Now they've got all this money tied up into two 30-year-old defensive tackles and then Bosa when they extend him, which is kind of risky. The thing about defense is you can have a rotation of players on the defensive line. You can have 2 down players, 1 down players, guys you use against the run, guys you use against the pass. You can't do that on the offensive line. You need guys out there for every play of the game who are good at all 5 positions, and they're harder to find. Defensive linemen, you can find them in the draft. You can find them in free agency. There's a lot of good athletes like that. Guys who actually can block them, very hard to find, and the Niners kind of just we'll make do.
Why do you think they emphasize D-line more than offensive line?
It's strange, right? Because the head coach is an offensive coach.
Yeah.
I think from Kyle's perspective, he's so good. He's such a genius that he can scheme around that weakness. You can't scheme around a weak defensive line. But with a weaker offensive line, he can get guys who are run blocking specialists and run the ball, and he can sort of slow down a pass rush with a play action game. That's what he thinks. But I don't really buy it. I think in today's NFL, defenses aren't selling out to stop the run. They want to stop the pass. They want you to run the ball. They're not really tricked by his play action scheme. He thought he was tricking the Eagles with that play action play. They're like, oh, they're going to think it's a run. No, they just rushed the quarterback and broke your quarterback because no one cares about the run anymore. So I don't know. It seems like a little bit of a backwards approach.
To me, it does. If I were running the show, the first big signing I would have made would be for a right tackle.
Yeah. The thing is, I guess what they would say is the right tackles in free agency, like arguably the best one was Mike McGlinchey. They're not that good. And so for the money, you could get a really good defensive tackle, whereas you might get a pretty weak right tackle. Frankly, they should be drafting these guys and developing them. That's what Philly does. All 5 of their starters are guys they drafted and developed. They have the best offensive line in the league. So the Niners are kind of like coming to this a little late. And they draft these guys around 4 and 5.
And as I recall from the championship game, the Philly offensive line really handled the Niners defensive line.
Yeah. Exposed it. Absolutely.
You'd say
like
exposed.
gouging holes into it. Yeah, they ran for 4 touchdowns. Javon Kinlaw was on skates. It's probably why they went and got Javon Hargrave, because of how dominant that Philly defensive line was in that game. Hargrave, offensive line, was probably why they got someone who could match up with it.